Hello and welcome to another manga spotlight. Today's series is IseGure. After constantly being used as a foil for OP Isekai protagonists, the Elite Knight has finally had it by Izumi Katsuki. So this is not an Isekai series, but kind of is. It's kind of hard to explain. Let's just say that this series very much pokes fun at Isekai tropes, and it's pretty freaking hilarious. So, the summary here. I'm not just a foil. In order to stop more people from reincarnating into his world, the former Elite Knight leader sets out on a mission. An unprecedented comedy about preventing any and all reincarnation is about to begin. So we start off with our main character, and her name is Chiwa. And Chiwa is 3 days late to school. Basically what happened was she ended up getting sick on the first day, so she never showed up to school. And by the time she got better, 3 days had passed. And because of that, she was late to make friends. Like everyone else in her class has already made their own friend groups and created their own cliques. And she completely missed her opportunity. And she's just kind of complaining as she's walking home about how she's a loner and she doesn't have a friend. And she's always lurking in the shadows. And then that's when Truck-kun makes his appearance. And Truck-kun's speeding down the highway, about to plow into Chiwa, when all of a sudden this dude in a black school uniform shows up and kicks the truck and completely stops it. And the guy is like, "You were just thinking, oh, maybe I'll reincarnate in another world, weren't you? Not on my watch, dumbass." And she was just completely confused, as anyone would be. She's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Another world? Reincarnation? Like, what is he on about? And then we get to find out the story. And the story is that there was this kingdom, and there was this holy order of knights. And the strongest of the knights is the elite knight, Pamira. No one can beat his skills with the sword. He had trained his entire life to be the greatest sword user of all time. Everyone across the land idolized him. We see girls giving him flowers and stuff like that, showering him with love and praise. And he basically says, "I am blessed indeed. I pray that these innocent smiling faces will never be stained by tears. To protect the justice and love in the world, I will put my life on the line. You have my word." And he walks away. So basically, he's the embodiment of the word elite. However, one day, someone shows up and basically starts patting the king on the back. He's like, "Oh, a real king. This is an isekai, right?" Of course, Pamira's upset. How dare this guy just show up and put his hands on the king? And so he goes to teach him a lesson when the guy immediately beats him with just one punch. And he's like, "Oh, I tried to hold back my skill, but I guess I'm just too strong." Of course, everyone's freaking out. How the hell did this guy just one punch Pamira? And of course, the princess immediately falls in love with this guy. And then Pamira goes and he's about to fight this dragon when this other dude shows up and immediately destroys it with one skill. And then, of course, another girl falls in love with him. And basically, this continues to happen where people just keep reappearing. They just keep getting reincarnated into this world. And as soon as they do, they have cheat skills. And they just completely end up destroying all these creatures, having all the girls fall in love with them. And of course, Pamira's squad is those bastards are so full of themselves. And Pamira's like, it doesn't matter. I don't know where they come from. I respect their strength. It must have been years of shedding plenty of blood, sweat, and tears to get that strong. They're just better than us. That's all it means. And they explain, no, that's not what happened. Those guys haven't put an ounce of effort. Pamira's like, what do you mean? And they explain, they're strong because they've been reincarnated in another world. We had our squad look into it. And the truth is that when a person reincarnates in a world that isn't their own, they are granted something called a cheat skill from God. And as a result, they become absurdly strong with zero effort, completely unrivaled. They can do the bare minimum when interacting with people and still end up popular. And in the end, everyone around them just fawns over them. Which is so true. I guess someone who's read a lot of isekai and has reviewed multiple isekai series for this channel, that is pretty much the formula. Some loner gets killed, usually by Truck-kun, but in other ways as well. Comes to another world, has a cheat skill, and basically is able to win over the hearts of women with no problem. Immediately gets a harem without having to do the basic work. Is he able to accomplish quests and missions so easily? And it does kind of make me think how must that feel for all the people in this world who basically spent their whole life training when you have someone just show up and is able to immediately beat you? And this seems to break Pamira's friends. People who are handed power on a silver platter don't deserve to live. And at first, Pamira's like, well, I mean, as long as they're doing good, I guess it doesn't matter. Like, as long as if the world is safe, that should be fine, right? And they explain, Pamira, you don't get it. Hot elite knights like you, guys with skills and good looks and stuff, you only serve as foils for the reincarnators. And Pamira's like, foils? What do you mean? And they explain the most common trope is for an isekai protagonist to defeat the elite knight with an OP cheat ability. And he's like, to hell with that. Like, I had genuine respect for them being stronger than me, but if they became strong by simply reincarnating and receiving an ability for free, that changes everything. I can't let them beat me. Like, my pride as a knight won't allow it. And so he continues training, and he's like, I'm going to make sure that my skills that I've learned since I was a child will be able to overcome all of these isekai protagonists. And then, as a result, he just keeps getting one-shotted. Protagonist after protagonist after protagonist keep getting isekai'd. And every time they see him, they just easily beat him. And it gets to a point where he just breaks. He snaps. And he just becomes pissed off at all these people isekaiing into his world and turning him into nothing but a foil. And it just says, like, there was a knight who fought for peace and justice, but after 10, nay, hundreds of people from another world using him as a foil, he lost everything. Once revered as one of the elite, that knight had now snapped, and we see him now, completely changed person, and he is the guy in the black ghoul uniform. He is pissed off at reincarnators. He's pissed off at isekai people. He's pissed off at cheat skills and harems and all that BS. And he believes that there is one way to stop this. I am going to go into their world. I am going to reincarnate in their world, and I am going to stop them. And so he finds Chiwa. And Chiwa was supposed to be reincarnated. This truck was supposed to hit her and reincarnate her into another world. And he tells her, you have been chosen to be the next person to be reincarnated as a hero. As long as I stop you, the chain breaks with you, because no one else can be reincarnated until you have been reincarnated first. So as long as Chiwa lives, no other person can be reincarnated. And so he's like, I'm going to stick to you like glue, and I'm going to make sure that you freaking live. And if you die, I'm going to kill you myself. Which doesn't make any sense, but I freaking love that line. It becomes his catchphrase. And Chiwa, of course, is just completely confused because she has no idea what this guy's talking about. She's just like, isekai, isn't that like that popular like anime genre? What does that have to do with me? She doesn't even want to be isekai. She has no thoughts of ending her life or anything like that. But Pamira just won't accept anything. Like, he doesn't believe her. He believes that she might be lying. And he goes and he destroys Truck-kun. And he just snaps and maniacally laughs. And I just love this. He looks so freaking evil. But it's because he's just completely been mind broken by all these people being isekai'd. And so Chiwa's like, okay, this guy is freaking crazy. And she makes a run for it. And as soon as she does, another truck appears and is about to hit her. And Pamira dives in front of the way and blocks the truck again. He's like, damn it, didn't I just tell you? I'm not letting you reincarnate. If you die, I'll kill you. And she passes out, and then, of course, he passes out from his wounds. And that's how the first chapter ends. And then from there, it basically just becomes Chiwa constantly being put on death's door. At first, it starts from Truck-kun. And then we get the reason why Truck-kun keeps trying to kill her. It turns out that one of her teachers, his name is Shibasaki. Shibasaki at first befriends Chiwa. He takes her up to the rooftop and he's talking to her about how she hasn't been able to make any friends because she was sick and all this stuff. And he's like, must be lonely. And it looks like he's basically going to help her get over this. Help her get over the fact that she's lonely, doesn't have any friends. And then it turns out that no, he's actually getting her up here because he's going to isekai her. He is the one that's summoning Truck-kun. In fact, he summons Truck-kun to drop on top of her, and Pamira has to show up and stop it. And it turns out that Shibasaki is an angel. And there's a whole group of angels, and their job are to find lonely people and reincarnate them into another world. Basically, their thing is like, there's a bunch of people out there that are lonely, that are miserable, that are friendless, and they're not happy with their life. And the only way for them to be happy is if we kill them here, reincarnate them in another world as a hero with a cheat ability, and then they're able to be happy. They're able to create a harem, they're able to make friends, they're able to garner the praise and love of the kingdom. And so the longer Chiro lives, the longer she's prevented from being isekai'd, the longer and the more lonely people there are going to be in this world, because none of them can be reincarnated until Chiro gets reincarnated first. So Shibasaki basically becomes a foil to Pamira in the sense that he's trying to kill Chiro, who Pamira is trying to keep alive. And so we just get comical moments where they just battling, and Pamira just constantly he looks kind of like Guts from Berserk, where he's just constantly snapping and freaking out and yelling all the time and maniacally laughing. He just looks like he's just filled with rage. And eventually, Shibasaki realizes that Chiro does not want to be reincarnated, that she's okay in this world. Obviously, she doesn't want to be lonely. She does want to have friends, but she's not going to offer herself just because she doesn't have that yet. She has no desire to become reincarnated. And after a while, Shibasaki is like, well, our job is to make people like you happy. So if reincarnating you is not going to make you happy, then we'll just have to wait until you become happy. So he starts kind of not trying to kill Chiro. At first he's starting to try to convince her to want to die. But then once that goes nowhere, and once Pamira keeps foiling his plans and stopping him, he's like, all right, well, whatever. I guess I just won't be able to do anything about it. So I'll just be around, and then whenever you're ready, just let me know. And then from there, we get more angels showing up. So, and the funny thing is that the different angels, they all have different powers. And each power is the different ways that main characters tend to be isekai'd. So, for example, Shibasaki's power was summoning Truck-kun, and he can summon as many trucks as he wants and send them at the protagonist. Another character shows up, and she's basically like your stoic loner schoolgirl, but she's also an angel. And her power is that she can summon slashers. She basically summons people wearing hoods and masks that go around and stab the protagonist. And so she's summoning a bunch of these guys to try to stab Chiro and kill her in a bunch of comical ways. And it's like, that's kind of funny because that's another way that, that's another popular way that isekai protagonists get killed is by getting stabbed. And then we'll have another character show up, and she embodies the villainous trope. And the reason why she's here is because if Chiro dies and gets reincarnated, she's going to take over her body. It turns out that this girl is a princess. She's only 5 years old right now, but her maids have found this fortune-telling device, and they realize that at some point, someone is going to reincarnate into her body. And of course, the princess is like, well, if that happens, what happens to me? And the maids tell her, well, if that happens, you will cease to exist. And so she gets completely upset because she doesn't want to die. So she comes to this world so that she can stop Kira, because as long as Kira is alive, then Kira can't reincarnate into her body, which is poking fun at the villainous reincarnation trope, where a character, it could be a boy or a girl, dies in some way, and then they get reincarnated into the body of the villain, or in this case, the villainess, and they take over that person's life. But the thing about those is that those characters aren't reborn into this world as a new character. They take over the life of someone that already existed, which did kind of always make me think, what happened to that character? Did they just cease to exist? Was their soul just destroyed? And yeah, in this manga, it's explained that yes, their souls cease to exist. So if Chiro reincarnates, this little girl's soul is going to cease to exist. So she comes to this world to stop Chiro from being killed. And then we have like another angel, and his power is he's able to basically take over the minds of the protagonist's superior and make them overwork and just completely verbally abuse the protagonist until the point where they die from overwork, which is another trope, another way that a lot of isekai protagonists die, is that they get overworked to death. And so his powers is to basically create an environment for the protagonist to get overworked to death. So this series basically becomes a series of all these angels with their different abilities trying to kill Chiro, who doesn't want to die. And meanwhile, Pamira is trying to keep her alive, because as long as she stays alive, people won't be reincarnated into his world. And he wants to stop that from happening because he's getting sick and tired of people constantly reincarnating into his world. And it's freaking hilarious. I love this series so much. It's so freaking good. The artwork is funny, like just the expression on the characters' faces, the craziness. Like at one point, there's like a yandere maid that appears. Just the different ways that characters like act. Like at one moment we have Shibasaki. He's like, "Well, my trucks aren't working, so I'm gonna create the ultimate truck." And he basically fuses with the truck and tries to dive bomb onto Chira. And it's just, it's so freaking comical and over the top, and it's hilarious. And I highly recommend checking it out if you want something funny to read. Even if you're like not a fan of isekai, this series is kind of weird because like I say it's not an isekai because the main character is not reincarnated, but it kind of is in the sense that characters from other worlds are coming into her world to try to stop her from being reincarnated into their world. But it also just it pokes fun at other isekai tropes at the same time while doing so. It's fantastic. I love it. I can't stop laughing every time I read this series. So if you want to read it for yourself, I'll leave a link down in the description below. I highly recommend checking it out. It's fantastic. But there you go. There's IseGure. After constantly being used as a foil for OP isekai protagonists, the Elite Knight has finally had it. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.